This is John Walton, and you're listening to the Power Play Point podcast with the Blue Liner on Point and Anna Knox. Here's Wilson, and on the right circle, he scores!
Rebound loose, wild scramble in front, score! Ovechkin with a buzzer beater! It'll count!
And a hat trick tonight, number 21,
Hello and welcome once again to the Power Play Point podcast. This is your host, the Blue Liner on Point, talking to you live to tape from downtown Glen Burnie, Maryland, where the clouds are descending and, well, it's kind of been gloomy all day, but it's early to mid-spring and the rain clouds come and go, and it's to be expected around here in the good old DMV. And it's no two ways about it. This is the wrap up as we saw the last of live meaningful Caps games to be played was played this past Sunday, and I realize it's been a week, so it's maybe out of sight, out of mind what we're going to talk about. But thanks to those of you who have joined us to listen, and thanks to those who will be joining us to give their take. As I asked, some of our loyal listeners have decided to participate, but that'll be on a separate recording, owing to time constraints. So we'll add that in as we go. So joining me, of course, for this last of 2024, as per just about always, is my loyal, faithful, beautiful, wonderful hockey partner, the wonderful mermaid from Centerville, Virginia, Anna Knox.
Aw, happy last episode, Gil.
Yeah, I don't know if there is such a thing as a happy last episode, but yeah, I'll go with that. It's bittersweet. You know, we kind of figured this is how things would end. Actually, we didn't figure how this is how things would end. We kind of figured they would end at the regular season, but you know, I'm going to start out by saying I'm grateful for the 2 extra weeks of hockey we got that, frankly, not a whole lot of us were expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's as I've tried to say as much as possible, even through all the bad times, the trick of getting through life is, you know, seeing the good in the bad. And well, when you get something extra that you didn't expect to get, you know, that works out in your favor, you know, you got to owe it to nothing but gratitude. So
totally. It is like, you know, you order the French fries and you get like the surprise onion ring. And you're like, sweet.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. They make
like it's those little things. It's the putting on the sweatshirt and you're like, oh my God, is that a $2 or $5 bill in my pocket that I forgot about? You know,
yeah.
it is those little things. So yes, we made it to the playoffs and didn't think we would, and we played, and it was a bit rough to watch. But we made it. We did go. And that's all that matters right now.
We got it. They got into the dance, and that's all that matters. You know, maybe we were kind of hoping for more, wanting for more, but you know, all in all, I don't think it was a really bad showing. So a 16th seed essentially playing a 1 seed, you know, what was to be expected, you know, what we got. So all in all, I don't feel too bad.
No.
But you mentioned going to a restaurant, getting food earlier. And of course, I'd be remiss in that we're recording this. Of course, it is not the first, not the second, not the third, but the day after that in the merry month of May. So if you are followers, of course, May the 4th be with you. Let me get that one out of the way. But you mentioned going to a restaurant. I heard that there was kind of a side story that in another galaxy, Obi-Wan Kenobi and his apprentice at the time, Luke Skywalker, went to a Chinese restaurant, and apparently Luke had a lot of trouble using the chopsticks, as a lot of people do. But you know what happened then?
No.
Obi-Wan had to advise him, as he always does.
Okay.
Use the forks, Luke. Use the forks.
Okay.
kind of
Just,
a warm up.
I can only wait.
Expected.
Only wait. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, let's as we always do for the final time this year, the one game that was played in the course of the last 7 days. Let's go ahead and recap it.
Mm-hmm.
This was, I think, in a lot of Caps fans' minds and hearts, the very best game that they played in the series. They really came out. Pardon me. Really came out in this one like they wanted to win it, not as if they didn't want to win the other 3 games prior, but they really showed a lot of heart and a lot of guts in this one. Now, unfortunately, it did not start out very well. Of course, the good news beforehand was that they were getting back Nick Jensen and Rasmus Sandin, who were both injured before this series even started, but we're coming back. Nick Jensen was, shall we say, kind of sort of responsible. No, not kind of sort of. He was responsible for the first goal.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really bad giveaway in front of his own net to Capo Caco, and of course he buries it. And this happened in the bizarro McNugget minute of the game. 57 seconds. And when it's a crucial game like this, you never, ever want to start out this way. And it can be said that this kind of spelled doom and disaster.
Right.
Or it could have, but like I said, the Caps played with a lot of fight and a lot of heart in this. They didn't let it. Well, or they tried not to let it. But it was well, I don't think it was a case of the Caps falling into a trap. That's a trap of elimination game jitters.
No.
Or anything like that. So
No.
I don't think it was that. I think it was just Jensen himself just had a whole lot of rink rust, unfortunately, and just mishandled the puck completely. Let's not make any two ways about it. He mishandled it, blew the coverage, and gave it away. And there you go. 57 seconds in, it's in the back of the net. Probably the worst thing that could happen if you're trying to win a game. But again, the Caps didn't let it get them 2 down. They fought back, and Martin Faravari, and aided by Alexei Protas and Dylan Strome, surprisingly Strome's first assist of the whole series, at 14:54 tied it still in the first period. So again, Caps showing a lot of fight and a lot of heart, and they're to be commended for that. And so shaking off that earlier blunder and making a game out of it. But unfortunately, as was their fortune, they took yet another penalty a few minutes later. Let's see if I can pinpoint the exact penalty. Okay, so okay, so this was again Nick Jensen taking a penalty for tripping against Adam Fox.
And that was like that stupid embellished penalty, right? On Fox.
Yeah, I think this could have easily have gone I wasn't surprised that it wasn't, but this could have easily have been one of those situations where you can call 2 minutes for the trip and you can also call 2 minutes for embellishment.
Yes.
And for people out there that said, well, how can it be embellishment and a trip at the same time? Well, the literal definition of embellishment means you make something more than what it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So if you can get yourself to understand that definition, that means yes, it was a trip, but yes, the guy being victimized is trying to make it more than what it actually was. I mean, come on.
It was NBA and soccer all in one.
It was very unbecoming of a guy
Who's a good player.
who's a good player, and I thought up until now was representative of maybe some old school hockey where you tough it out and you don't do shit like that. Well, needless to say, it was disappointing to see, but it was just typical of this series that part of it wasn't called. Was it a trip? Yes. Was it a bad play by Jensen? Yes. Did he target the knee? No. But I think the Rangers realize, okay, well, the way we're going to win this series in an easy manner is to get as many penalties as we can. So we might as well embellish the F out of what we can. And I really do think that was their strategy. And I doubt any Rangers fans are listening, but I think that's what they tried to do. I think once they realized the refs were going to call what they were calling and that they had the advantage on the power play,
mm-hmm.
that's what they went for. You can't really tell me any different.
Agree.
So, and not surprising, not long after that power play, and this guy's killed them all throughout the series. Vincent Trocheck doing what he does, sneaking into the slot, his third of the series, makes it 2-1 Rangers with 16 seconds left in the period. Once again, Caps are behind going into the first period. But before we go into the second, okay, so all right, you tell me, how do you think our boy Tommy was in this series?
Oh, in the series?
In this series.
I don't know. I thought I don't think it was his best. I think he was frustrated. I don't know.
I think he was doing for himself. I think he was, I would have put him at a A-, B+. Until
I was going to say he was a 90% and then he just lost his cool.
Yeah. Until this moment towards the end, right not long after the goal was scored. And mm-hmm. I think it had maybe a little something to do with what we were talking about just now. He went after Adam Fox and it sounded like he had quite a few choice words for him. And I think basically he was calling him out for embellishment and the acting and the soccer like stuff and
mm-hmm.
But took it a little too far and ended up getting called for roughing.
Mm-hmm.
Which
that's what I mean. I mean, I think he's held it together a good majority of the season, and I think he just had enough. I do. I think he played 90%, like you said, about A- or so. But I think he just got the frustration got the best of him.
Yeah, but it was a really bad time for that to happen. And so my beef with that is if you are all but anointed the next captain of this team,
that shit can't happen.
You can't let that get to you. You got to lead by example and say, you know what? Let's get pissed, but let's use that energy to getting back in control of this game.
Right.
And all of 10 seconds, he kind of forgot about that. And
Yeah, I think the emotions
unfortunately,
just got the best of him.
yeah, unfortunately, it was a bad time. He just let it get the best of him, and it's not something you want to see in a future captain. So he's got to find a way to, in those crucial moments, kind of keep it within and just remember the bigger picture at those moments when he needs to.
Well, I fell to the chirping, unfortunately, and that's what happens. And when you have that fucking Matt Kempe on the, it's like, God, I hate that kid.
I'm not even gonna dignify him because
no. But I'm just saying, I think it just, it all just came to a boil, and it was like, you know what, fuck off. I'm just gonna, and he did. He lost his, and knowing how far he's come in regards to keeping his cool on the ice, no pun intended. He is, I'm sure right after it happened was like, that, my bad, that's on me. He knows he can't do that moving forward. And I think next year, or in, I guess, maybe 2 years, or whenever he does put that big C on his jersey, it'll be different, because he is also, aside from being older, he's also going to be a dad soon. So I think we seem to see some shift in players when they get married and then they become dads. The responsibility and the what is more important, play safe and skillful, or drop the gloves every 2 seconds and be the asshole on the ice. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I kind of wanted to see more of the latter. With him, at least for this series.
Really, even though he tried.
Well, he tried, but I don't know.
But I think but how is that different than him shooting his mouth off at Fox? And well, he did more than that, but
I don't
know.
So okay, so you go, I think the way he goes about it is not try to intimidate somebody that way, but do what he's known for and make space for himself and his teammates. And if somebody tries to get in the middle of the ice, then all kinds of pain, all kinds of whatever, all kinds of punishment that you can muster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether it's I don't know if he's got it in him, but maybe a force choke or something, but swing the lightsaber, I don't know. But in any case, impose his will. I think he was holding back maybe like 10-20% at times. And I think, like you said, maybe he was kind of trying to be more responsible at those times. But there are times where you just have to forget all that and just leave it on the ice. And I part of me kind of feels like he was holding back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was the difference, but but he's got a little bit to go as far as kind of figuring out when to put out that extra energy,
mm-hmm.
and when to hold it back.
Yeah.
And I think that's what next season and the season after is going to be all about, because we know he can play any line. We know he can play any role. No, he's already doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's already put in the positions he's supposed to be in.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of it in this master class that he's going through, just finishing that out and being that leader. And I think you're going to see him. You're probably going to see him, especially after a certain situation we're going to talk about later develops. You're going to see him wear the A lot more and have an opportunity to display that.
Yeah.
So
I still think it's well deserved.
Yes. And so back to the game. So Cap started the period a man down, managed to kill it. And at 7:48, Hendrix Lapierre, fortunately or unfortunately, this would be the very last goal the Caps would score this year. But what a goal.
Oh, a hell of a goal. And good for him.
So for the very last time, we're going to call up the replay. And basically, it was Alex Alexiev collecting the puck in the Caps end, or at center, rather, shuffling it over to Lapierre. And then basically he takes over at center, goes around two Rangers, shoots it at Shesterkin's pads. It bounces back for the rebound. He taps it in midair over Shesterkin's blocker hand and into the goal.
It was fantastic.
A great, great goal, a great thing to see. And I think it's previews, thankfully, previews of coming attractions for this guy. I think this was, if anything, this was a showcase for him, but a statement in which he's saying, look, I'm done with the AHL.
Mm-hmm.
Slot me a permanent spot on this team, man.
Yep. He definitely proved himself 100%. And
I think he did anyway.
Yeah, agree.
So that's pretty much how the second period ended. And as Joe B. and Locker pointed out, for the first time in the series, the Rangers didn't go into the third with the lead. So we were still kind of hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
And our little Rebel Alliance was certainly hopeful that the big bad Rangers would fall in this and kind of be a victim of their own PR here and kind of just not want to do what it takes to finish this game, maybe wrap it up at home. Well, unfortunately, so what do the Caps go and do? They get another penalty, and TJ Oshie was the perpetrator this time. 2 minutes for high sticking against Vincent Trocheck. And Caps go down a man about a couple minutes into the third period. And unfortunately, Rangers score again on the power play. I can say, from my point of view, it was the Rangers power play was that good, but at the same time, I think the Caps penalty kill wasn't as good as it could have been, or at least was all year.
They were showing some fatigue.
I think it was fatigue, but also it was just they just weren't as good as they could have been. So Panarin scores on this one, Zibanejad and Fox on the assists, 3:21. This turns out to be the winning goal. And late in the game, Caps are battling. What do? They take another penalty. This time, Rasmus Sandin trips Artemi Panarin. No, so they're trying to come back, and they take yet another penalty. And
right.
Again, I don't know if it was fatigue or they just couldn't hold down this Rangers team, but it just seemed like any time they took a penalty at a crucial moment, it killed them.
Right.
And to me, that was the story of this series, because there was a lot of proof, both visual and data-wise, that the Caps were outplaying the Rangers in most aspects 5-on-5. So you can say that if the Caps had managed to stay out of the box, this might have been more of a series.
Right.
We'll never know because it's all over. But Jack Roslovic gets his second, and Caps had no choice but to empty the net to at least even it at that point. So it was a power play empty net goal. Lafreniere Trouba in the assist on that one. 1909 thus endeth the game and the series. And yeah, I mean, give the Rangers that many power play chances, they will kill you. They gave them 4. They scored on 3, and like I said, story of the whole game and the series.
Yeah,
right there. You just can't do it. And
yeah, it was rough.
Now we're going to talk about the future here in a minute, but somebody on Nova Cap's Facebook site said, "Oh, get a forward who can score. The defense is fine." Well, to whoever you are that said that, no, the defense is not fine. Alexiev starting to come into his own, and had it not been for that stupid signing of Edmondson,
Right.
would have gotten a lot more experience instead of sitting up in the damn press box for 20 plus games,
Yeah.
and would have been that much better. But our entire right hand side is all over 30. They all, well, with the exception of Carlson, probably should be replaced. So, but I loved how Carlson just defied. I don't know what it was, but he basically defied any semblance of fatigue or age or anything. So
Yeah. Well, seriously, with the amount of minutes he played per game, holy shit. And kept it together. He's I don't know. I've never had anything negative to say about John Carlson, so I was impressed with his season.
As was I, and so if no matter what level you're at, well, when 30 minutes a game you play look as good, you will not. I guarantee you that. So that was the one bright spot, I would say, was the fact that he managed to outlast everybody and not show any rust from game to game.
Yeah.
But it just, unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. And look, you never want to get swept, and for those who are still crying and whining and complaining like a 6-month-old that doesn't get his bottle on time, that the Caps had no business being in the playoffs. Well, boo-hoo. Your teams didn't make it. Your teams didn't win the games they had to win to make it. Ours did. Sorry. Not sorry.
Move on, people.
See you next year. Try again.
Right.
So, all right. Well, that was the last of this year, and that's you never wanted to end on a sweep. But again, I will say this: overall, this year, I am extremely proud of this team. Just about all of us here figured that they would challenge for a playoff spot, but ultimately fall short. They exceeded those expectations. I think they exceeded just about everybody's expectations. I'm a little cheesed off that Spencer Carberry didn't get any consideration for the Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year. But they weren't going to give it. They weren't going to give it to somebody who's that young and somebody who's first year in the league,
right?
Unless they did. I think he pulled off a minor miracle, but unless he did something like got them in the first place or something like that. Well, I think much like a lot of our compadres, like Janaea Talks Caps and Robbie Gross, I think he deserves some consideration, but ultimately didn't finish in the top 3 for the finalists. But I think he did a very good job. I will admit that I didn't agree with some of what he did. Not unlike his predecessor, he tried the line blender a few times. I don't think that ever worked out too well. There were some line combinations he found that did work and that he didn't stick with as much. Maybe he should have,
right.
And vice versa. In the first third of the year, I would say I did not like the way the offensive scheme looked. I think he kind of learned as he went how better to put that together. So you get a few quality forwards on this team and add that to the younger guys who were, learning from this valuable experience that was this season. I think this will be, pretty good. This is stacking up to be a pretty good team next year. Now, that all said, they've got some work to do as far as adding some parts. Let's get the negative part out of the way. I think we can safely say that they're going to wave. They're probably going to wave bye-bye to Max Pacioretty.
It's fine.
And very likely Nicholas Obey-Kubel. Those two are probably well, they're free agents as of this coming off season, and they're probably not coming back. So those two, I'm pretty sure will not be back next year, or this coming season, next season. Now let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. So Nick Backstrom is already in LTIR. I don't see a scenario where he doesn't continue on that.
I think he's done.
It has been, the idea has been thrown out where to save space on LTIR, he gets traded to a team that has a lot of low salary players and has trouble meeting the salary cap floor, so that they can pick it up and save the cap some space that way, because you're only allowed to put a certain amount money wise on LTIR, which of course, if you never heard that phrase, is short for long-term injured reserve. Basically means you can put that contract aside so that you can sign other players with that space that they would have otherwise taken up. But it'd be kind of funny for Backstrom to officially finish for on the roster of another team. So I don't know how that's going to play out. But the guy that everybody's wondering what he's going to do, of course, after this game played out, TJ Oshie, and we all saw what he did at the end of the game, and what it kind of looked like, and the way he explained it was that, just in case. Now, he hasn't declared anything yet, but just in case he ends up deciding that was his last game, then he wanted to be sure. He wanted to make sure that he was able to take it all in and say a proper goodbye to the home crowd at Capital One.
Yeah.
And if that was the case, I kind of wish I was there, because I have his jersey for a reason. That's my favorite number in the whole world, and I don't have a favorite player, but if I did, it would be him, for the way he plays and what he can do. And it's been thrown out so much in that in the sport of hockey, you have to play the game a certain way, and the right way. Well, he personifies that. So for me, I'm going to be selfish here. I'm probably in the minority as far as this goes, but I'm going to be selfish here and say I hope he finds a way to make it back, to figure out what is going on with his back and all the pain he's been feeling. Now, I will say this on top of that: if it's anything like the back spasms I get every now and again, I don't blame him for wanting to retire. I don't blame him for not wanting to go through it anymore, because at best it's that kind of pain is a reminder that you're getting old, and at worst, that kind of pain makes you not want to live, makes you not want to face the day, because in that area of your body, the slightest movement, it hurts.
Excruciating.
It hurts to breathe. It hurts to move the slightest. And it is just, excruciating is probably the only word in the English language that can describe it.
Mm-hmm.
So if after whatever amount of time and reflection he needs, then he decides that, look, I'm done, then that's great for him, and I wouldn't blame him one bit. But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go alone on this if I have to and say I really hope he comes back, because for if anything else, for two reasons. For his own sake, he's got 1 year left on his contract, and part of the character that he is that he doesn't like leaving anything unfinished and on the table. And with that 1 year, I think he's got some unfinished business, so he feels, and will try his damnedest to complete that. And from a team perspective, well, you know, I don't know how else to put it, but the Washington Capitals are a totally different team without him.
Agree.
And what he brings to the table, what he brings to the locker room and on the ice, you know, it's not exactly like you can go to, Watto's Bazaar and go pick it up and buy it for 10,000 Republic credits. All right. It isn't something you see every day. It isn't something you see in every hockey player. It's rare. And that's part of the reason why he wears an A. And that's another part of the reason why they tend to win more often than not when he's in the lineup, even when he doesn't score a goal.
Right.
So if they're going to have to make plans without him, they need to find a way to replace him. That ain't going to be easy to do. So,
no. Oh my God, no.
It makes more sense to see if he can stick it out. But again, I know I'm being selfish for saying that, but in the reality, they're a better team with him.
Yeah, it's a hard call for me, to be honest. Because, I mean, just a month ago, when we were recording, saying, just his vibe in the locker room and how much better they are on the ice. But I've also had those back spasms, and to know that, when he came back after he dealt with it mid-season, and it was amazing, but again, it was temporary. And you don't want to, God, it would be like we're walking on eggshells every time he got on the ice. You'd just be like, please don't let this be a game-ending injury. Like, you don't want to see that with anybody, but you don't want to see it especially with him, knowing that, how vulnerable he could be to slamming up against the boards and something really going terribly bad. I don't want him to be a target, because there are dirty players out there that will see that as a weakness, and I hate to admit that, but yeah, I mean, this summer we'll just have to see, only he knows. So I don't know. It's really a hard call. Selfishly, yes, we'd love to see him back. But logically, it isn't worth it. I don't even want to. I wouldn't even want to think of what could happen or the pain that he could be in if something, even if it wasn't, by another player, just tweaking your back the wrong way. We know how much that is just like, we've seen him drop, to his knees, and that is just, it's hard to watch. He's got 4 kids, so it's like, if he can't pick them up like he's made reference to, that's hard to hear too.
It is. And, it's not as if you can take into consideration, what he, what his, home life is. No, let me strike that. You have to take that into consideration.
Right.
If you're him, and, it's not something, we, the fan, can easily think of, but from that perspective, do you really want to face basically, in effect, being a cripple before you turn 40 years of age?
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, him statistically and everything else, and fan base, we love him. He's still human, and is it worth it, going out there and putting your body through that, when you can't lift any of your kids up?
Yeah. And that's part of something, just to give give everybody an idea. That's part of something he's going to have to consider. So, final verdict: would it surprise me if he decides to retire a little bit, but not really?
Right.
Actually, the more that I think about it, I think what is most likely going to happen is that he's going to give it a go and pretty much go the way that Nick Backstrom did.
Yeah. I was just actually, now that we're thinking it, I was like, that's not a bad way for him. If he had to make the choice and he was cleared too, then I would respect that. I would respect whatever he decides anyways. And so that's certainly not, but I think I would rather see that move versus, God forbid, he has a season-ending injury caused by another player.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not something you would want to see. But I would definitely respect him if he decides, okay, I'm going to give it a shot here, and then 5-6 games in decides, you know what, I don't have it anymore. It's not. I can't give it my all. I'm not helping the team. I'm going to step aside and just finish. Now, the thing of it is, it would only be for 1 year, as would Backstrom. Pardon me. I believe next year is the final year of Backstrom's contract. So if they had to, they might have to do some financial sleight of hand. That's for management to figure out down the road. We're certainly not paid to do that here at this podcast. So, but I want to reiterate, okay, for everybody that's saying, "Oh, he needs to retire now. He needs to retire now. He needs to think of himself." Okay, that's great, but I mean, these same fans that are adamant that he retire now, you know what? If you go and complain that the team looks different and doesn't play the same after he does that, shut up. I don't want to hear you. Okay? Because there's a reason for that. There is a reason for that, and it's because he brings a certain something. Okay? So you don't sell your car, you don't quit your job, you don't make that drastic a change without some sort of a backup. So before you say something like, "Oh, we need to get rid of him. He needs to retire. He's doing himself no good." Okay, do you have a backup plan in place? Can you think of a way the team can replace him? Honestly, because if not, shut up. I'm dead serious about that, because put yourself in his skates. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm just going to retire. I'm just going to walk away." You can't just do that. You can't just flip that switch like that. There's pride. There's commitment. There's all kinds of things he's got to think of. So it's not as easy as just saying, "Well, I played my last game." No, it's not that easy. And if there's anybody out there that thinks it is, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. And that's why he needs some time to think about it. But like Anna said, we will respect whatever he decides. And I definitely respect him for taking the time to think about it and preparing for the worst. Or
Absolutely.
Well, not the worst, but whatever, all possibilities.
Absolutely.
So okay. So but the Caps have, other than those needs, some needs to fill. Obviously, a more consistent number one forward who can consistently put the puck in the net. It was a surprising year for Ovi. Didn't think he'd start out as slow as he did, and then nobody thought he'd have the resurgence that he did. Another 30-goal season, and then everything dried up again in the playoffs. So he's another guy that's going to have to take this off season. Now, some critics out there have said, well, if he shows up at the beginning of the season in shape, he might have stood a better chance. I think there's some merit in that. I'm hoping if maybe come July he starts really gearing up towards that and just preparing a little bit earlier, then he's got a good shot at certainly another 30-goal season, maybe more. Of course, everybody's got the record in the back of their minds here, despite what outsiders would think. But
Right.
no, the record isn't first and foremost, because if it was, this team would not have tried and successfully made the playoffs. All right. So F you to those people who thought it was. That's obviously not. But yeah, that's top of mind. So with the cap space, unfortunately, off the top of my head, I don't have the exact figure what they have to play with money wise, but they have some room to go out and get a top forward from free agency. Now, unfortunately, from what I'm seeing, free agent crop, aside from one Steven Stamkos, is not all that fruitful this year. I don't think so. They may want to hold off on that. Also, you don't want to disrupt team chemistry too badly.
Right.
So it not only has to be somebody, it has to be the right somebody.
Exactly.
So, and as I mentioned, they definitely need to get younger on defense, especially the right side, the right-handed defenseman. Once upon a time, I would have said Deal Carlson. For a lot of reasons, I don't think that would be best for the team. I think he's proved that, barring another injury, I think he can finish his contract and still be valuable to this team. So I think that ship has sailed. Unfortunately, I don't see anybody taking that contract without some sort of retention of salary. So that might permit any such deal to be made. And also, like it or not, he is all around still the best defenseman they've got.
Yeah.
I think Sandin is still a year or two away from being fully developed.
Yes.
Alexeyev pretty much lost a half a year, as I mentioned, because of stuff that went on. But as many needs as they have, they also have some seedlings that are growing and will be mighty oaks very, very soon. Alexei Protas grew by leaps and bounds this year, I think.
Absolutely.
If Sonny Milano could develop a little bit more consistency, I think he would be a permanent fixture on the third line. I know he had to figure out some injury situations this year, but I would like to see a little bit more consistency from Sonny. And they need to sign Connor McMichael.
Yes.
He had his struggles this year, but I think he also grew as a player and thrived under Spencer Carberry's system, and I think will only get better as the years go by. So I don't know if he's going to be top line material, but I think he's definitely second line material.
That potential's totally there, though.
Every day, yes, yeah. It is definitely there. He hasn't hit his ceiling yet, fortunately, but by that same token, he's got a ways to go. So there is good news, but we're still missing that scoring punch, and I'm not sure if that's going to come from within or from free agency or from some sort of surprise from somewhere. I don't know, but the Caps definitely need that, and if they don't get that, they have to get better on defense. And last but not least, Charlie Lindgren was a revelation this year. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about him. I admit I didn't start out being a fan of his. I've grown into that. I am probably about 98% convinced that if over the course of an 82 game season, they trusted him with number one duties, he could last the whole year plus playoffs. I saw signs in him where fatigue got the better of him once he was given that responsibility. With a whole offseason to have that mentality, and with hopefully Darcy Kempfer realizing that if he wants that number one slot back, he's going to have to earn it.
Yeah.
So maybe that competition will be something else that kind of fuels that fire. And, maybe he plays well enough, gets his game back enough that he turns back into at the very least a 1A that they can trust him for anywhere from 35 to 45 games, which would probably be ideal. I think that's the goalie situation that we're looking at. Now, I've harped on this many times. So I'm not going to make much more of it than I've already had, but everybody knows how I feel about the goalie coaching situation. And Marcus Lemley mentioned that the guy down in the Finnish guy who coaches the goalies down in Hershey pretty much has it right. I think he does. Look at Clay Stevenson and Hunter Shepard, the seasons they had.
Right.
Hunter Shepard was the goalie of the year. Clay Stevenson had a bounce back year and had a great season.
Yeah.
And that comes from guidance of a goalie coach that knows how to handle a situation like that. When you got two hungry goalies that both want to be the number one and can be the number one. Right. So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea if we elevated him, because the guy we got right now, I'm sorry, he ain't cutting it. I think he's a good reason why the number one that we signed for 5 years, if going to be upset about anything, by the way, it's the term of the contract, not the amount of money, but the term. Okay. A 30-plus-year-old guy they signed for 5 years didn't quite cut it in the second year of his contract. All right. And that's mainly on him, but I think that's a product of really bad goalie coaching. So again, I think they need to make a move there, because from the end of Holtby's time with the Caps till now, he's been the one common denominator. So if you have a really rotten fruit in the barrel, you throw it out. You don't keep it there. You throw it out. That's all I'm saying as far as that goes. I'm not prepared to make a prediction for next year. There's just too much work to do. But overall, I liked a lot. I liked what I saw in this team, especially down the stretch. And I think if they get one key guy to, if not replace, but emulate what Oshie brings. And I think we saw a lot of that in Carlson. I think he's been wearing the A for a while, but I think he emerged as, a little bit more of a vocal leader this year. And I liked seeing that. I think that's one way he improved his game. Look, I'll say it. He improved a lot defensively too. And I said this on Sports on the Hill. I think the coaching of Mitch Love has had something to do with that. So I think the defense, while they got a lot to work on, has come a long way. But they definitely need to get younger on the right-hand side. So lots of work to do, but it's cliche, but the future is definitely bright for this team, for sure.
Absolutely.
Quick word on plans for this season, this podcast anyway. I'm going to defer to Marcus's podcast, the Capitals Off Their Chain podcast. That's kind of the draft. That's kind of his area of expertise. I will be making an appearance with some commentary the day of the draft. I believe he plans on having an episode. If there are any major offseason moves, we may discuss that. There are at least 2 loyal listeners that would like to come on and have their say about this season. As I said, we'll feature them a little bit down the road. So it's kind of a 1A edition of this episode. But other than that, we'll wrap it up, go on our usual off-season siesta. So given that, I want to virtually reach my hand across the cyberspace and shake the hand of my wonderful, loyal, undying pain in the ass somewhat, but it's if I can explain this well enough, it's a pain in the ass that you need to feel sometimes, or might even feel good. Thank you once. Thank you once again to my ever loving, ever popular, ever loyal co-host, Anna Knox. I could not do it without you, and look forward to yet another season. I know things have been tough on you, and they're probably going to get even tougher. Is Hunter going into his junior year this year?
He is.
Yeah. I remember my junior year of high school. That was probably the craziest year of my life up until that point.
I think we're everyone's like, oh, get ready, and colleges and this and that. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
For that reason alone.
It'll be, but you know what, Gil, I will say I will absolutely take blame for being a total pain in the ass at times. I know. I apologize for that, but you are fantastic. There's a reason why I come back. You've got this down. We got the chemistry. We've got the laughs, and we love this team. And yeah, and are we going into year 7? Year 8?
I believe it's year 8.
Holy shit!
Because I think we started the year before they won the cup that season. So yeah, I think this one coming. My goodness, it's hard to believe.
God, it is.
Neither one of us has asked for a divorce. So
I know, or a raise. So amazing how that works. No, but thank you. You always have been. You've been amazing and consistent, and I appreciate it. You do all the hard stuff. I'm just here to offer an opinion.
Well, I really couldn't do this without you. And I want to say a quick thank you to C4 Cheryl Ann Forster, who fills in when she needs to.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl.
And everybody who made an appearance this year. If I forget anybody, I'm sorry. I always do. But John Blackburn of the Captastrophes, Troy Evans.
Yeah.
I think we had a couple other people on. Did not have as many guests on this year as we usually do. So I'm going to try and rectify that next season. But it's kind of also on you guys. So if Sunday evening doesn't work for a recording time, I'll work with you. But I really, really want to have you guys on because that you guys are what this podcast is all about. So come to me. Let me know. Hey, I want to do it, but I'm only free this time. We'll make room for you. So we really want to have you on. But yeah, thanks to everybody who was stayed with us, and to you new listeners and joiners of the Facebook page. Thanks so much. Thanks to Janaea Bennett for being a new friend. And check out her show, Janaea Talks Caps. If you haven't heard that podcast, you are in for a treat. It is one of those few that are I'm thinking we're separated at birth because we try to do the same thing, be insightful and go for the laugh. It's knowledgeable and hysterically funny all at the same time. You're definitely in for a treat if and when you go give that a listen. All right, so I think I'm done with all the thank yous. Again, if I forgot anybody, I do apologize. But thanks all of you on the other side of the earbuds, as speakers, what have you, for tuning into us and helping keeping us going. So we're going to wrap it up here for the final time for regular for the 2023-2024 season. Thanks again, and keep your eyes on this team because they're gonna bring a lot of smiles and make you jump out of your seat next year.
Absolutely.
For a lot of good reasons. I can feel it, and in the years to come. All right. So for the last time, this is the Blue Liner on Point, signing off and reminding you that, well, I was out for a walk the other day, and I went to the local playground. I saw this girl who was running a battery kiosk in the middle of the local playground. And, well, you got to wonder what somebody is doing there with something like that, battery kiosk in a playground. Well, it's true. She sells seashells by the seesaw.
Oh, wow. My God.
Had to go out with a bang. You know me.
You did.
Hallelujah, and let's go Caps.
Go Caps.
This has been another episode of the Power Play Point Podcast. All episodes are available from Apple Podcasts, the Podbean app, blueliner77.podbean.com, and now available from Stitcher. Music by Joe McAllister, voiceover by Jeffrey Conkle.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Power Play Point Podcast. Thanks for listening.
It's not a goodbye.
No, it's not.